take books that you're drawn to, you know, and start reading them. But there are tons of places that you can go. I would recommend word of mouth. A lot of times if people have had experience with somebody, if they think that they've done a good job, or they've given them, you know, a good read, I would tend to, you know, take those people more than just massively advertised people.
So could you tell us a little about your particular qualifications and what your training entailed?
Sure. I was trained as a Reiki practitioner, and part of...
Can you explain Reiki a little bit?
Reiki was, I'm an energy worker, and part of that development, part of that section of my training dealt with my intuition. It was just sort of a natural progression in developing my intuition and psychic capacity. It's just something that unfolded for me.
Definitely.
So I trained under a woman, and then I also trained in the ministry.
Okay.
You know, in Indiana, and I'm
I
still
can
training.
imagine that's a good complement to
Yeah,
that
so
field of
they
work.
trained me as a clairaudient. Excuse me, clairvoyant. You know, and I'm still training as a clairaudient. I haven't received my papers, but it's an ongoing, you know, training process where I'm studying down there.
Now, do you have core focus of what you train people in?
I try and gear people more towards clairaudient reading.
Oh, why is that?
I keep saying clairaudient, and
You mean clairvoyant?
I do mean clairvoyant.
Okay.
Why do I do that? Because I believe that that's the most optimal read for a person. You know, that's the thing that's going to best serve who I'm reading, in my opinion, based on what I know. Because, you know, sometimes it is helpful to explain, enlighten somebody. My foot hurts, sorry. To explain to somebody I know. Oh my gosh, I'm losing my train of thought all of a sudden. Sorry, I was talking about my foot, and it hurts.
The core focus.
Okay,
yeah,
the core focus. Yeah, focus. I believe it's the best service for the person that's receiving the reading, because they pretty much know what their emotional state is. You know, they want more of a message. You know, they want clarity, clear vision. You know,
That's what
Yeah.
clairvoyant is. Now, can you explain a typical
Sorry.
reading? No, get comfortable.
Yeah.
Take those off. What is a typical reading, and what should
typical
someone expect when they come to you? Do most people you see have something on their mind, or is it
Yes.
usually deal with current problems or past problems or loss of people? When I tend to think of intuition and psychic development, I think of people beyond, you know, or that you've lost, and resolving issues with that, but I don't know.
Well, that's an impressive view, because most people don't have that view. But that's, I think that you're right on. When somebody comes to me, this is how I do a reading. I ask for their name, their full name. I ask them to say it, their birth date. I read for the person, okay? I ask them to not interrupt me for about a half an hour or however long it takes. And then I open it up for questions. And I let the person know, try to stay away from should or shouldn't I, because it's just not an effective question. I read, and a lot of times people who've passed away will come into the paper. I write the name down, and then I get confirmation on my reading through a name associated with the event. And you should always make sure that the person that's giving your reading is confirming your messages. You know, and that's what a clairvoyant will do, is they're able to confirm the message that is being, you know, channeled, so they can give you that confirmation, which I think is really important.
Now, is there anything a person could do to prepare themselves, or is it more of the state you're in that can make it a better session?
Well, obviously, if the person has a high vibration, a lot of energy, that's going to help a reading. You always want to sort of raise the vibration of the room, meaning the energy level, and it's like easier to connect. Somebody's totally closed off, you'll know that the person's closed off, but you can, you know, that's part of being clairvoyant, or, you know, you can surpass somebody being shut down. So,
What are some
or your messages, you know, it's not totally dependent on the person.
So what are ways people would benefit from this kind of reading?
Maybe clarity. You know, maybe somebody wants to connect with somebody who's passed away. People, a lot of times I find out people just need that extra boost of confidence of their own intuition. That's why I think it's so important that people develop their own intuition. It's a tool. It's never, that's one thing that I want to, things are always in motion. You're reading, anyone's reading that I give, it's not set in stone. It's not carved in stone. You know, again, energy follows thought. We change all the time. People are always growing and developing in different ways. I always caution people to not take this as some sort of a gospel. You know, it's a tool. It's a way of getting clarity, you know, and maybe it's somebody just needs to connect spiritually, you know, but it's a tool. It's not it. It's not, again, the magic wand, you know.
Is there any way for, like you mentioned, you encourage people to develop their own intuition? Is there any way we could do that without being formally trained, or
I think so.
just a couple?
Well, sure. It depends, you know, what it is that the person wants to do. If they just kind of want to be more intuitive, let's say. What would I tell somebody to do? You know, it's water's a really good conduit. You know, to kind of clear your mind and sort of receive internal guidance. Intuitive information is really being at one with yourself, like your higher self, being able to hear your own guidance. So meditating to hear your own guidance, to hear that inner voice that's guiding you, is your intuition.
Okay. So each person could kind of find that in how they'll clear.
Yeah, and it doesn't need to be, you know, candles, incense, you know, the whole nine. There's nothing wrong with that, but it can be, it can be a couple of different things.
Okay.
I don't know what that means.
No, that's very interesting, because sometimes when you're not a natural born intuitive, you don't
so it
know
doesn't
exactly
have to
where
be.
get
Some of the
why
best
and
forms of meditation that I've ever done have just been rollerblading by the lake.
Really?
Yeah.
So you just find what works for you. And
Yeah,
kind of
you
go with
totally
it.
find what works for you.
Now, personally, as a psychic, what kind of boundaries, what are the personal boundaries that you have when you're with someone?
Boundaries.
I imagine it's pretty important to create.
Yes, they're very, very important to create. You have to. You have to put up proper protection. That's why being trained is so important. Okay. So you can't just. It's important to receive proper training and to be able to channel the reading most effectively. So you can't. I don't want to start getting into this topic because it's a whole other topic, but training is required to understand the parameters in which you're working with. In boundary.
5, 4, 3, watch smarter.
Boundaries. Yeah, when somebody starts developing their psychic ability, boundaries are a huge thing. For example, for several reasons. A, because you're intuitive, you're picking up on so much information of other people that you need to learn how to block yourself so you're not a sponge. I mean, you can literally get a headache.
From other people's energy.
From other people's energy, from just anything that you're picking up, God only knows. Especially when you start opening up, you know, you become very, very sensitive to other people. So you have to learn to protect yourself and have boundaries and direct and command the information.
Are there any ways that just your average person could protect themselves when they feel someone else's energy? I know you work a lot more in depth, but just a day-to-day.
It's okay. So if somebody, I would put like a little bit of bubble, send positive thoughts out, and just sort of put a bubble
Just
around
try to
yourself.
combat it. Okay.
And your purpose should always be higher than your emotional state. So.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, that would be that's like my little advice for, you know, that's
I like
my
that.
tidbit.
Yeah. It's kind of rising above.
Rising
Your
above,
emotion.
but not just to rise above because you want to rise above. Rise above for something. I mean, if you just want
keeps
to
you
rise
clear.
above, that's, you know, that's great, that's honorable, you know, but what are you rising above to? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's like
You rise above the emotional
but
level.
have that. You're rising above because,
I like that because.
you
Just
know,
add that in.
because you're going somewhere, you have a higher connection. Like, it's just, you know, it doesn't need to say that this person's lower than you or less than you, but, you know, if there's one thing that I'm always trying to do is not react to people's emotional states. You know, it's extremely
That must be
difficult.
hard. Yeah.
By no means am I necessarily great at it, but it's just something that I'm always striving for, you know, because I care about the fact that I am consistent within my own rules for myself. So, you know, that's what I mean by rising above for something other than the sake of just rising above.
Now, how can this benefit people? Just in summary, what would be the main?
How would developing your intuition? I think it would builds courage. It takes courage to rely on your intuition. It takes courage to follow your own instincts when it seems that no one else is following what your instincts are. You're going to have to walk alone for a while, I think. So it takes courage. I think it makes life very exciting. There are so many different reasons, but I think it can help give clarity in very trying times. I think that there's a sense of calmness and peace, a connection with ourselves, you know, in spite of circumstances and environment.
Now, how do people generally feel when they leave? Is it a range of emotion, or?
Sometimes it's a range of emotion. You know, again, when let's say grandmother just passed away 2 months ago, and the grandmother comes in the reading. It's emotional. You know, it's not Hearts and Flowers, Yellow Brick Road, like lovey-dovey, like Ken and Barbie are getting married type read. You know, everyone wants to know about this is like reality. You know, so you're reading. It's a very intimate, personal thing. You know, so I mean, loved ones could come through. You know, it's great. You know, it can be inspiring. It can be amazing. It just depends, you know, where you are. It can be unbelievable if, you know, this is something that you don't believe in, and you witness something like it. So it's mind-opening. It's definitely mind-opening, you know, but it's not something, you know, again, I use the whole example of Ken and Barbie as something very shallow and superficial. You know, this isn't, and I don't know, maybe these psychic hotlines are fine. I'm certainly not bashing them, but, you know, I mean, it's not commercialized, you know. This isn't like lose weight in 10 days type thing.
It's more of a
Some
personal
pill type, you know what I'm saying? It can be emotional. It can be emotional, so.
So what I get out of it is that it's helping people find the truth, and
I think it helps
it
give
kind
somebody clarity. I think it puts them back in touch with their own intuition. I think that people could sense something, you know, they need to know some information, something, they were led to go here, you know. It could be for many different reasons. I don't think that there's just one reason why it can help. I think it depends on the motive. Definitely.
Okay, well, if you would like more information on Margaret Biskowski and developing psychic intuition, please call 312-664-2288. Thanks, Margaret, for being here and sharing your knowledge with us.
Thanks, Lisa.
tonight.
Thanks for your time.
Okay.
All right. Good night.